where she had wanted to go was New York, but this was a less expensive and further away option, and so that's what I think that figured into it. Yeah, she was in Clovelly. She was sponsored initially by her father, and there are many letters in which she says, "I really need to make this pay. I have to, sell things and make it pay." And I don't know that she ever did totally, but obviously she wasn't there for 9 years, solely supported by her parents. I don't think they didn't have that kind of money. I mean, they were well off, but not that well.
So there are quite a few of her artworks in England.
I believe there are, and I have not. That's like another project that I would like to undertake sometime to find out where all they are. We actually got, well, those are photographs from England that don't really have to do with her art. They're not photographs of her artwork, but I know there are things there.
Is that what she did, miniatures?
She did miniatures throughout her the latter half of her life.
That one right there is California.
And this is California. Yeah, but I think what you were talking about are the little miniatures on not on a
ivory.
Not
on
flat,
ivory.
Yeah,
Do
on
we
ivory.
have any of those?
Yes, the cases are not out yet, but there will be.
Yes, as you can see, exhibition staff has a way to go before the opening reception.
Because she painted a variety of styles, and she didn't seem to be known in her time, was she considered or recognized as an impressionist? Or did that term come to be used later, as you said you used it to put the show together?
I think that term was used at the time only in France.
Only in France.
And in America, it wasn't until later that we sort of grouped these people, the Connecticut Impression, the Connecticut school,
So while she was in
American
England and
Impressionists.
Scotland, that term wouldn't be used with her painting.
No, and I just think what would have been the result of her painting in this style is that it would have been more interesting to people in America. They would have seen it as the latest thing, and from someone who was there, in Europe, learning and from all the people who were better known, and that was definitely a reason that most American artists at that time spent some time in Europe, partly because, as you probably know, we didn't even have museums in this country until the 1870s. That's when the Metropolitan and the museum in Chicago and the Philadelphia Museum of Art were all established in that period. And so, the European artists and the Americans who went over there to train had the benefit of being able to go to the Louvre, to these other museums and look at all this art that was, we just didn't have it here. There were some collectors in the United States, but their work was usually in a private home, and so it just wasn't available. And we, of course, had schools and teachers here, but there's nothing like, seeing the thing. I mean, that artists today sit in the Louvre and copy, and that is a good way to learn how to do it, and we just didn't have that opportunity here at that time.
So there's 65 pieces in this exhibition, but there's 45 paintings, or?
I can't remember the exact number,
Okay.
but you should have it in your checklist. And you're right. The other pieces are, I think there are 3 books that she illustrated, and 2 miniatures. So that should all add up. Okay. But that's why the number's different. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that last answer? Because my understanding, there were several American artists at Giverny. And of course, that was actually after the French Impressionist group had officially disbanded. So it is later, but I know Impressionism was quite a big thing in the U.S. when it finally arrived,
Yes,
with the exhibits and so on, and with the American artists coming back who had studied overseas in France and were at Giverny.
Exactly.
So you're saying that they didn't call it Impressionism at that time?
As I say,
I know there's a different style, an American Impressionism, but what did they call it?
They called it all sorts of things. I mean, they, you know, sort of the new painting. The most common phrase was it was loosely brushed. They called it that somebody had a loose brush.
Was certainly used in units.
It was, but it was not a label for the artists, the American artists who painted in that style. They painted with a loose brush. This is what I've seen. And it wasn't until, you know, people like Cassatt came to market it, essentially, the work of the American Impressionists to her social friends here in America in the sort of 1890s.
Oh, okay. So you're just talking 1890s.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
well, she was,
okay.
these paintings were, I mean, okay, this was done in 1940, but she began her work, she started studying in London in 1896.
Oh, okay.
So she only painted there from 96 to 05. And so those were the formative, well, not, she was formed earlier, but, you know, that was when she was doing a lot of this work.
So we're thinking the same time period,
Exactly.
essentially when they are applying the term Impressionism.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
I was thinking you were
That I just
saying it
made
was
it up.
much, no, not at all. I was thinking you were saying it was much later, but we're actually talking about the same time period,
Yes, but
1890s.
I don't think people in America really recognized it as a, they thought it was weird, it was just weird painting to them for a long time. And the people who collected it, who were willing to buy it, were avant-garde.
Yeah.
And really, you know, was not mainstreamed until really, you know, the 1960s is when Impressionism became a big deal and garnered all this money, you know, that it was so expensive.
Yeah.
It really was not considered mainstream, and certainly not when she was doing it.
Was there some point in American art centers or museums that were highlighting Impressionism or brought it out because it was a thing to do?
You know, that is a good question, and I don't know the answer. Not in that period, certainly. No, it was all private collectors at that time.
My understanding of the Pan-American exhibition was really a culmination and highlight for American Impressionist painters. And also the beginning of the decline after the Armory show and so on. But at that particular show, the American Impressionists dominated the exhibits.
The Pan Pacific in San
Right.
Francisco. That was 15 around, yeah. So you see, it was a lot later. I mean, by then, the French Impressionists were, you know, off onto other things. So it was we lagged always, you know, in cultural matters until about the 50s, which was sort of the American decade.
It totally went out of favor for many years.
Yes. Yeah.
This is because I anticipate this question coming up, not so much on the art, but on just color. Okay. No, not color in the paint. There were 8 children, 6 survived.
Oh, that kind of color, yeah.
Okay, that kind of color.
Right, 8 children, 6 survived.
Of the 6 surviving, are there any offspring? I mean, any family today that's still? I realize Mrs. McClatchy
Right, but
is
she's from
connected
the Brewster
from
side.
the Brewster
Right.
side, right?
You know, there must be.
Oh, yeah,
I just,
because you know
I haven't done that research.
we're still researching who. Thomas Jefferson's family, okay, so.
Well, I think it's probably less controversial.
Maybe there's some secret letters among some of those descendants.
That, you know, as I go through to see exhibits, sometimes we talk to people who bring that question up, well, who's still alive today that's
Right.
connected?
I have no idea is the answer to that question. But I bet we could Google, find out.